Things Will Never Change with the Bruce Hornsby and the Range, using that. And then of course after that, the Tupac single used it as well.
Yeah, right.
Which I thought was hilarious and strange at the same time. But for Things Will Never Change by 840 on the Hall of Game, you've compared to Tupac especially, but even theirs, I think yours is slower. In particular, do you remember why you slowed the tempo and the pitch down and stuff?
Just because that's just the groove that we were in. We just was on that slower pace. We wasn't really on an upbeat type of a vibe. We just was in a mid-tempo type of a space. You know what I mean? There's, they were different type of producers. I think Soul Shock and Carlin produced Tupac's. You know what I mean? They were like upbeat, happy. We were like slower, mob, or groovier. You know what I mean? That's why the versions were different. You know what I mean? I think that's just where it came from. I think they were like some. I think they're from Sweden or something.
Yeah,
Soul Shock Carlin.
I know they're European, but I didn't know. I don't remember.
Yeah. So they just were up and happy, and we were just mobbing slow. You know what I mean?
Okay. Yeah. Now the Hall of Game came out toward the end of '96, but I remember when I went to Freaknik in '97 that people were still playing that album, and they were only playing brand new stuff except the Hall of Game. And that always blew me away because obviously Freaknik was in Atlanta, but that was not what I expected going down there because I'd been to Atlanta. One of my friends went to Clark, so I'd been there before and I'd done some assignments and been there and stuff. But when I was there for Freaknik, I was shocked. Do you remember why the Hall of Game seemed to have legs in different parts of the country and last for seemingly a very long time at the time?
Nah, I really don't know because back then I was only going to other parts of the country. I would go to would be Miami, Atlanta, or New York. Those are the only places I was really going to. So I didn't even hear it in none of those places. I never heard those albums being played in none of those places other than California. You know what I mean? So I actually didn't think that the Hall of Game really, was being played like that. You know what I mean? Because I wasn't involved with the day-to-day and the sick with it directly with Jive, analytics. So I didn't really know. So I couldn't really gauge the success of it like that. I knew that Sprinkle Me was going, you know what I mean? I knew that, but I couldn't really tell how big. I felt like the Hall of Game really, and I think it went gold. It was a gold album, right? Did it go to gold?
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, I knew it went gold, but that was just off the heels of, success of the Major Way. But I felt like it didn't really do as much. It didn't feel as successful as, you know what I mean, the Hall of Game for some reason.
Okay.
To me, I don't,
Yeah, but I think the Players Ball, now I'm thinking about it again too, maybe that song had, with the college crowd, you got the singing on it. It's a different vibe. Maybe that also led something to do with it. So then all this success is great. And speaking of Tupac with All Eyes on Me, co-producing 2 of the songs on there with Rick Rock, how did since you've collaborated and produced with so many different people, how did those 2 songs with the Trading Ward Stories and Ain't Hard to Find, how did Rick Rock end up being the one that you collaborated with to get on All Eyes on Me?
So Rick Rock, I had Rick Rock. He was like, oh man, let me plug this phone up.
No.
So Rick Rock was he was in my camp at the time. He was signed to me as my publishing company, and we got a call. I got a call from somebody, and they were like, Tupac wants to come down there. So I'm like, Pac, let's go. Let's go to Rick, we going to LA. So let's load the equipment up. We loaded the equipment up, drum machines up, and we went down there. And so that's how Rick Rock ended up down there. Because he was already working with me at my studio at the time with the Cosmic Sock Shop stuff that we did.
Shout out Big Lurch.
Yeah, Big Lurch. So we that's how Rick ended up there. You know what I mean? So Rick was, young protege working with me at the studio. He had the SP 1200. And that's what he was, a super sample king. You know what I mean? He was just only producing on SB 1200. You know what I mean, at the time. And then when he got to me, then I started showing him how to work the MPC. And then he just turned it out to be a monster on the MPC. You know what I mean? So, well, yeah, that's how we ended up. That's how we ended up in LA. We got a call like, come down. Pac is, you know what I mean, doing some stuff. We need y'all to come down. We're shooting a video, California Love video. Let's go. You know what I mean? So we're like, all right, went down there, and that's how they ended up happening.
Now, with Trading War Stories in particular, and Sibo's on both these songs, but Trading War Stories in particular, it seemed, quote unquote, to me at least, less musical or less going on sonically. Do you remember why, since there's so many people on Trading War Stories, how or why that appealed to them so much? And when you have something that's skeletal like that, were you ever, because I've seen it and heard it and witnessed it happen both ways, where you'll just have a skeletal beat and then you'll build around it later and then just play it and they yes it, okay it or no? Or did you just, that was it and you guys just were like, okay, cool?
Yes. No, what happened was, so we got in this big old huge room, right? It's like probably about 50 people in this big old studio room, Death Row, right? At Can-Am Studio. And so we were setting up our equipment. So I'm like, Rick, you got the stuff? Got it? I'm like, yeah, I got it. So we got the SB 1200. So Rick is just, going through, trying to load up some sounds, getting some stuff ready. So he slapped a disc in of something that he had already had going. And Pac was like, what? Wait a minute. What is that? Let me hear it. Nope. Don't stop. Don't do nothing. Don't load nothing else up. We finna do this, right? We're finna do that song right there. And it was a sample that he had that he had been working on in Alabama. We wasn't even trying to really play it or do nothing. He just was loading up stuff, hit the button. Oh, okay, I see what's on this disc. Take that out. But Pac caught it. Like, no, I like the way that sound. Let's do that one. And so we had that. We just literally just cut the machine on and let it run. And then I played a little melodic line on top of it. And that's why it stays so skeletal. And Jewel was in the studio with us at the time. And she was like pushing me, play the keyboard, play it. And she like forcing me to, put a little line on the song or whatever. But that's how that song ended up going. You know what I mean? It was just a disc that Rick had. He just popped him in and Pac heard it and was like, what? And we just pressed play and there it went. You know what I mean? Yeah. Well, that's how that ended. So they, it was just, because Pac really was East Coast too. You know what I mean? So he really liked it, unorthodox East Coasty, boom bap type of, music as well. He liked all genres. I think it was a challenge for him too, to rap on different types of music,
Right.
And so when he heard that, he completely didn't expect that at all. You know what I mean? He didn't expect that type of sound to come out from over there. So when he heard it, he was like, man, I want, that's something different from what I'm doing. Let's do that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. And then obviously, and unfortunately, Pac passed after that or soon thereafter. And with Richie Rich on the Seasoned Veteran album with the Do G's Get to Go to Heaven, he's shouting out Tupac and all this different stuff. So when and obviously throughout your career, you've produced a lot of songs with people that are rapping about people that they had lost. But with the Richie Rich in particular, do you remember a specific like vibe or somberness to making the music or to working on the song? Like, what was the vibe of that?
Because I had been around Pac and Richie Rich. I know Richie Rich through Tupac. Tupac introduced me to Richie Rich. You know what I mean? So it was, I had a song and I was working on, I think me and Femi was working on this, that Do G's Get to Go to Heaven song, and Rich heard it, you know what I mean? And we was all like in a somber mood, you know what I mean? So Rich heard the song, he's like, man, he heard us working on it. He's like, man, we finna do this one for Pac. I'm gonna do this song for Pac, basically. You know what I mean? It was perfect because we wasn't even really trying to do a somber type of song. We just was working on just, tinkering around and trying to build and work on something. And then Rich was like, man, I want to do this. So we're gonna make this one to Do G's Get to Go to Heaven. It's what was speaking to him, that whole melodic vibe to him. Then Femi got on the organ and started adding some organ parts to it. Some, because Rich was real big into the church. His family was from church, church people. So he was always telling me about that Hammond organ that we would put in there. I got some video footage of us doing that song actually.
Man.
Yeah.
Well, even if it's just for me, I'd love to see that one day. That's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. No. It's on his Bosses in the Booth.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then speaking of the somberness and the other stuff, soon thereafter or around the same time, you did the RBL and Eye for an Eye with the Gone Away. And that one also has the singing, sounds somewhat churchy, but that's also, RBL had gone through its own losses as well. And then with the reflection and like trying to find a better way, because one thing that, all the artists that you've worked with and the ones I know personally, that's always something that's important to them. As much they talk about the streets or hustling or gangs or whatever, they're always also like, yo, we want a better thing. We want to stop. We want to change. We want this to be better for the people around us and just for everybody. So with Gone Away, what did you take away from that lyrically and thematically?
I can't even remember that song. Which one is it?
Well,
which one is it?
That's the one where he's talking about trying to find a better way, and like, he's sad about, the deaths that RBL had already experienced at that point. It's just more of a reflective. The beat's pretty elegant on there. It's just one of those reflective, wistful songs.
Yeah, I can't even remember. But now that you say that, that is kind of true. That we produced a lot of songs that people are reflecting and reminiscing and talking about somebody who passed away. But that seemed like they ended up being one of our niches. I didn't realize it until you just now really pointing that out. Because like I say, we were just doing something. It wasn't like, okay, you know what, I'm the go-to guy for, eulogy songs. You know what I mean? It was just like, we had that in our wheelhouse to do those type of vibey, type of, somber, slow songs. You know what I mean? So it just so happens, and I don't even think the artist was even coming to us for those in particular. It's just something would happen, and we all would be in the studio feeling that way, and then we would start working on something, and that's what the feeling was that slow, somber, melodic type of thing. Then it would instantly jump onto the artist and influence the artist and have them to start speaking on that situation. You know what I mean? Yeah. We didn't even, half of the time we didn't go in purposely saying, you know what, we're going to do a song about this. Let's go. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because
would start.
Yeah, because he's talking about Mr. C's, Black C's talking about Mr. C's, death and stuff, and shouting out to him, just as Richie Rich shouted out to Pac, and then, of course, Sibo throughout his career shouted out a lot of people, as has 40, etc. But with RBL Posse in particular, since they had gone from super independent Bay Area artists to then with An Eye for an Eye being on Atlantic, one of the biggest labels in music history, you at that point had seen 40 graduate like that. Sibo had gone and been on like Virgin and different things. And now RBL had made the same thing, the same leap from the independent game locally to this huge mammoth juggernaut. So what, seeing that happen time and time again, like, what did that teach you? What did that show you? What did you learn from it? How did it shape your mind?
Well, I thought that that's actually how I ended up meeting Mike Karen, was that RBL with Atlantic. Mike Karen and Terry Heller, not Jerry Heller. Jerry Heller's nephew. But that at the time we were just that looked like, to me, that felt like the natural progression because the Bay Area was hot. You know what I mean? So it just seemed like that's what our life was gonna be, and it was never gonna stop. You know what I mean? So once the Bay Area cooled off and it wasn't as hot as anymore, then that's when it all hit me. Like, you know what? Now what? Now what's gonna happen? You know what I mean? What do we do next? And so that's where went to LA. I was in LA, and I was with Mike Karen, and we went to the NAM. Me and him driving by ourselves. We went to the NAM convention, and he was playing. He was like, "Yeah, I got this kid. You know, he signed to us, but you know, they kind of pretty much got him on the shelf. We don't know what we're gonna do with him. But you know, if you ever need somebody to sing some hooks, you know, here you go. Let you hear some stuff." So we ride to the thing, and it's TQ. He playing TQ to me. You know what I mean? So I'm like, man, this dude, he was kind of like a R. Kelly, but a different R. Kelly, a West Coast hardcore R. Kelly. I'm like, oh, I like this. You know, I heard it. I'm like, man, what's up? You know, I like, yeah, I'll call him. I'm gonna call you whenever I come back to the studio. So I would just, me and Rick Rock, and we would just go to my publishing company, EMI at the time, on Sunset, 8730 Sunset. And we would just go there, just book time and just go and just exercise and just work on music, just randomly. Go to LA for 3-4 days, work on music, then go back, come back up to Fairfield. So one of the times we was working on something, me, Femi, and Rick Rock, we was working on a song, and then it sounded good for TQ, and so I called Mike Aaron and sent TQ over there. But so I had to pivot, you know what I mean? I had to pivot into doing some other stuff, you know what I mean? Because the rap well had dried up in the Bay Area, you know what I mean? So it just so happened, just being blessed and organically, this stuff just was happening. You know what I mean? So like, man, I don't know what, only time I could really remember about having to reflect and really think about what to do is when it went from CD to digital online. You know what I mean? That's when it kind of like changed dramatically. You know, when it went from analog to digital, it's like those were the hardest points. Everything else kind of like just fell in place and worked out to where it just seemed like it was supposed to happen. You know what I mean? I didn't have time to think about, you know, what's the next move yet, you know, until those two situations, you know, the digital and analog and the, you know, uploading and downloading free music. That's when we were kind of like really shook up, you know. Plus, after Pac died too, it just took the wind out of the whole Bay Area. You know what I mean? He just was like, we didn't have no more legs. You know what I mean? So we kind of like just died and fizzed out ourselves. You know what I mean? And so that's when I had to go another way and, you know, start doing R&B stuff and working with TQ.
Now I want you to listen real close to me. I'm going to ask you some real simple questions, and I want some real simple answers. Do you understand?
Yeah.
Do you understand?
Yes, I understand.
You said that you couldn't have possibly been at the crime scene at 11:15 because you were in the bookstore buying my audio book and my hardcover book at 11:15 when the crime scene occurred in Soren's book.
The history of gangster rap.
So you couldn't have been at the crime scene because you were buying the books.
Right. At 11:15, I was at the bookstore at 11:15, and when I bought the books and accidentally left them at the store.
So at 11:15, you couldn't have been at the crime scene because you were buying books, right?
At 11:15, when I was leaving, it was some people coming in, and I forgot to grab.
But you don't remember who
what they look
people,
like.
what they look like or nothing, right?
No.
So, at 12:15, you were in the bookstore buying my audio book and hardcover book and Soren's book at 12:15. So you couldn't have been at the scene because you were buying the books, right?
Yeah, at 12, exactly, at 12, at 12:15 exactly, I was at the bookstore.
Now you see. You know you done fucked up.
What you mean?
First you said you were at the bookstore at 11:15, and then you said you was 12:15. You know you done fucked up, man. He fucked up.
Yeah, he fucked up.
He fucked up.
Man, you confusing me, man.
So, you get my book, my audio book, 40 years, and Soren's book, History of Gangster Rap, and if you don't, you know you done fucked up, right?
Man, the more those cops ask me questions, the more I wish I bought them motherfucking books.